The number one thing people ask me is how I make shaker charms, so today I'm going to teach you. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley of Lace Spirit Designs, and if you're here for the first time and are interested in growing your small business or watching me grow mine, make sure you click subscribe and the bell so you never miss one of my videos. Alright, so today we're going to dive into everything you need to know to make your very own acrylic shaker charms. These are some of the most popular things that I sell in my shops, and they're a really fun and interactive way to make creative merch. I order my shaker charms exclusively from Vogue, so the way that I set up my files and designs is going to be more nuanced to how they manufacture their goods. But I know there are tons of other acrylic shaker charm manufacturers out there, so I'll add in little tips and tricks and other things that I know about other ways that might be different from how I set things up. I've seen tons of clever ideas for shaker charms, and I really love coming up with my own clever ideas. But today we're going to operate under the assumption that your design is already done and ready to go, so we're just going to focus on setting up the files and getting them sent to your manufacturer. Let's get into it. Alright, first and foremost, I'd like to say that I currently make all of my digital art in Photoshop CC, so some technicalities I mentioned might be different if you're working in Procreate or any other program. When I make my shaker charm art, I like to keep a file separate from the manufacturer one that retains all of my layer info on it for easy edits and adjustments. I also prefer to illustrate the shaker pieces separately from the shaker container to make things easier to move around when I merge my layers. When the design is done and I'm ready to create specs for the manufacturer, I strategically merge all my artwork layers. All of the shaker piece artwork becomes one layer, and same for most aspects of the container artwork. There are a few instances where you might not merge all of the artwork, and I will go over those for you. The first instance is if the front and back of your design are not identical or clear. For example, this picnic basket shaker charm. The shaker pieces are meant to be moving around inside the basket, and the back side of the charm is the bottom of the basket. In this case, you will separate your shaker container artwork into front, inside, and back artwork. Instance number 2 is if your design has a 3D effect, which I'm not sure is something all manufacturers can do, so please double check with yours if they can do something like this. My fairy terrarium shaker is a great example of this, and I've even created a little layer model to show my manufacturer the expectations for how I intend this charm to be built. For a design like this, you will have a front background, and back layer. And instance number 3 is if your design has translucent parts. For example, my Jar of Fireflies shaker charm design has translucent parts to emulate darkness and give more focus to the firefly pieces inside. In this case, you would have your translucent areas separated from the solid color areas on another layer and have front and back art, if they are identical, and translucent layers. I would like to specify that Vogue requires these layers to be separate from solid colors, and this may not be the case for all manufacturers. Once you have your artwork layers merged accordingly, it's on to the other specs of the design. I always start with the outline of the charm itself. Vogue is a manufacturer that allows clear outlines around their acrylic goods, and I know not all manufacturers can do this, so this stage may be different for you. In Photoshop, I use the magic wand tool to select outside of the charm artwork and inverse the selection. I go to Select, Modify, Expand, and typically do about 20 to 30 pixels, depending on the size of my artwork. We're going to do 15 this time. Once that marquee selection has expanded, I right-click while the lasso tool is in use, click on Stroke, and choose the color black, and make the pixel size about 3 pixels. Control D to deselect, and you have your outline. I then use the Circle Marquee tool to create a circle, and hold down Alt to minus select the inside of the circle. Right-click again and add a stroke to create the keychain attachment hole. Merge these all together and name the layer Outline. You can also go in and clean this up so you don't have this silly spot. Next, I designate the shaker area. Depending on your design, this may be a complex step, so I will show you a couple of examples of mine. Typically, I use the same method as creating the outline, which is to make a marquee selected area, right-click with the lasso tool and stroke, but the creation of the shape is usually free-handed. For my bottle shapes, I follow the contour of the container. Or for designs like this jack-o'-lantern, I take the tiny peekable areas into consideration and make the area go within the parts that will be unseen. I like to color this stroke in red to help it stand out, and on its own layer, name it Shaker Area. If your design has areas that will have a solid color, you'll want to make those completely solid by adding a layer of white. I've had some keychains not have a white layer and a separate backside artwork, and without that layer, you can see right through it in the right lighting. Of course, this may not be an issue with every manufacturer, but this is something to keep in mind when creating acrylic goods with Vogue. White layers sometimes might peek out from behind the artwork layer, so when I select my artwork, I Control-click on the artwork layer thumbnail, go to Select, Modify, Contract, and I choose 1 to 2 pixels depending on how thick the artwork is. The selection will now go slightly within the artwork, and on a layer of its own, use the Fill Bucket tool to make the area white. Name this layer White, and move on to the next step. If your design has multiple layers with solid colors, you might have to create multiple different white layers, like my Fairy Terrarium shaker, which has a white layer for each artwork layer. This pretty much completes the file setup for the shaker container. Now onto the little shaker bits. I'd first like to note that when I create the artwork for my charms, I'm working on a canvas that is set up slightly bigger than the height of my completed shaker charm. That way when I take measurements for the shaker pieces, I have an accurate size to go off of. It's also important, no matter what program you're working in, to create your designs with a minimum DPI of 300 so your artwork is crystal clear when printed. Regardless of how many shaker pieces you have in your design, I merge all of them onto one artwork layer, separate from and outside of the shaker container layers. In fact, I like to make a folder specifically for shaker pieces, specs, and layers. This layer will be your front artwork layer, and if these pieces are in a clear container, this will be your back artwork as well. You'll want to follow the previous steps in creating the outline layer, though change the pixel expand size to about 5 to 10 pixels. I've never personally made shaker pieces translucent, so I follow the above steps to make the white layer as well. Check with your manufacturer about translucent shaker pieces. In some instances, the shaker pieces might be duplicates of one single design, like my Fireflies shaker. This makes it easy to set your file up because it's all just duplicated. But in some designs you have 5 different tiny pieces of artwork, so you'll need to differentiate the size of each one if they are different. A trick I like to do for this is to turn on my ruler and set the units to centimeters. Select the outline of each piece one at a time and drag it up to the far left corner of the canvas. Using the guides on the side where the ruler is shown, you can see what size in centimeters the shaker piece is. Control Z to put that outline back where it came from, and then on a text layer, write out the centimeters of that piece and place it under the design. Repeat this process until you've done each different piece and you're set. A couple of things I like to do in my manufacturer files is convert all text layers to a rasterized layer and merge them into one layer. That way there's no lost font errors when someone opens your PSD file, and it's easy to read and remove or set up. I also like to round up all the shaker pieces and see how they will fit within the shaker area of the design. This helps in case there isn't enough room between the designs for an easy shake, and you can resize them accordingly. At the end of all this, your file should look something like this. Now it's time to save. Due to years of ordering via group orders, I instinctually name my files in this format. I like to believe this also helps my charms not accidentally end up in someone else's order, but it also helps to keep things easy and tidy for whoever is processing your design. I start with my first name and last name, underscore, shaker charm for designation, underscore, file name in case I'm ordering several shaker charm designs at once, underscore, the overall charm size, underscore, and the quantity. I also like to add in the attachment number according to whatever reference the manufacturer has for different style attachments, so there's no confusion. Save your file as a PSD with layers, and it's ready to be sent off. If you're ordering from somewhere besides Vograce, your manufacturer may ask you to set up your file or file name slightly differently than how I've shown you. But this is always how I've made mine, and I've never had any issues. Next, you can usually expect your manufacturer to send you a proof that shows all of your design or designs laid out with their specs. Mine will usually show me the translucent layers separately from the solid color layers, so they know they're not going to mix them up with the solid color layers. One thing to note about making designs with thin artwork layers, like this one, is that there's going to be an area where you might be able to see the glue. This is something you'll want to consider when making your design, and if that discrepancy doesn't bother you, it might also be a good idea to let your customers know that it might be visible in case it's extremely visible to you. I have a few different designs with thin artwork layers that definitely have visible glue, and I've only ever had one customer reach out about it, so it's usually not a problem. Once you carefully review your proof, you'll want to send your manufacturer the okay or any edits you have, and then you sit back and wait for your charms to arrive. Processing and assembly of shaker charms take time, and I've had my Vograce order take anywhere from 7 days to 3 weeks to be ready to ship to me. It's good to be mindful of overseas holidays, global conditions like the pandemic that might slow or stop production, or even postal delays when your charms finally do ship. If you want to have shaker charms to sell at an event, place your order with enough room for errors and holdups. And with that, your shakers are done. These are really some of my favorite pieces of merch to create, and I hope this tutorial helped you to create your own wonderful shaker charms. If this video was helpful, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and if you made it to the end, drop me a star eyes emoji. You can find me on Patreon or Ko-fi if you want to help me grow my small business, and it also helps me to continue creating free content like this for you so I can keep teaching you what I know about small business. And with that, I will see you guys next week in a studio vlog where I go into ultimate con crunch mode, getting ready for SAC Anime Summer 2021. Thanks for watching. Bye!